In some ways, King's story is part of our story. We talk about it all the time. Last campus that King spoke on before he was assassinated 2.5 months later. For me, though, it is much more than that. It is the story of courage at Manchester at the time that King was invited. There were death threats then. When Blair Hellman was asked why Manchester took the positions that it did during those tumultuous times, he said it's because this is who we are. It's the kind of place that we are as an institution. It is legacy. It is an expression of who Manchester is today as well as who we were then.
"50 years ago, Dr. King spoke on the future of integration and talked about the move that America was making at the time needed to learn how to integrate because it's not going to be two separate worlds anymore. And at that point, it would be a white world and a colored world. But that we needed to learn how to share resources and ideas and be able to rely on one another in order to advance this nation forward."
I was here when Martin Luther King was on the campus, so the memories are still fairly vivid. The first visit, the intended visit that didn't happen, we didn't have security and didn't really anticipate what was going to happen. And it's fortunate that his plane didn't come. Quite a few people were on campus who were protesting. Well, that scared everybody on campus. We didn't really have a police presence. President Hellman came up with the idea, and it was well designed, I think. He invited Barry Goldwater and Martin Luther King back only about 2 weeks, maybe 10 days, 2 weeks apart, so that if there were protests, it would be two directions, because Barry Goldwater was still a major figure then. And then we had police, there were state police, local police, and it went off smoothly. And actually there weren't as many demonstrators the second time around as there had been the first. There was tension and yet relaxation. It wasn't something that was world shaking.
I remember how excited I was because I'd seen him on the news and heard him speak in speeches, and I just couldn't believe he was coming to Manchester. That was such an exciting time.
I think like most freshmen, we were somewhat oblivious, and I don't think we understood a lot of what was actually going on behind the scenes. I know we didn't. He spoke not just of black and white, but more so maybe even Dr. King was pointing out these social injustices and challenging us to do something about it.
The decision to bring Martin Luther King to Manchester would have been contentious at any times, but for different reasons. Before King came to campus in 1968, the debate was about the war in Vietnam. It doesn't surprise me that the hate mail that President Hellman received specifically mentioned King's position about Vietnam. Now, the division in North Manchester had been going on for some years before that. Churches experienced divides, families experienced divides. Houses in North Manchester were vandalized because of positions people took on the war.
You know, with Dr. King, I mean, he was willing to go to jail, he was beaten, he was spit upon, a lot of different things that people today would not tolerate. He was able to endure, and not only endure, but then overcome.
When I think about Manchester's values, they are articulated best in our mission statement, and the three that I lift up all the time are respecting the infinite worth of every person, being a person of ability and conviction, and improving the human condition. And I don't want to put our words into King's mouth, but I think those are values that he would affirm and that he did affirm with his work and his life. The fact that his work ended not with success but with assassination is a marker of how significant that cost was and how strong his commitment was to that. And I want our students to know both the cost, the high cost, and the importance of commitment.
I don't think he changed Manchester much. he affirmed what we were already doing. But certainly I think his impact on Manchester was very great.
He is a lot more diverse of a man than we give him credit for. Now granted, we look at him as like a superhero, which on many fronts he is, but he's a man just like everyone else. You know, anybody could step up and do that. It just depends on if they take that next step in order to make that happen for themselves.
The whole idea of justice for everyone, not just if you're rich or a certain color, it shouldn't make any difference. If you are kind to others and helpful to others, it makes you a better person for the whole world, not just for yourself.
We need to think about ourselves as members of broader communities and the importance of our contributions to bring about justice.
The university has not become, in my judgment, from observing it from the outside, has not become less attached to that philosophy.
You know, we look at Manchester, we look at the students who are here, the faculty and staff that are here, and I mean, it's increasingly getting diverse.
I think coming to Manchester, for most people, opens your eyes to the world and to our own towns and homes too. It makes you think a little more about the plight of other people.
I've thought over the years so many times, you know, what would have happened if he hadn't been murdered? Where would he have gone? What would he have done? How would the world be different? I honestly feel like we might be in a different place nowadays if he had been allowed to live. I think he could have made a very positive change.
King represents one of the threads that runs through Manchester's history, and it is that thread of emphasis on social justice, on peaceful reconciliation of differences, and that continues to be reflected in the work we do today, and I think it is one of the things that points us into the future.